There is a certain pain that is deeper than betrayal. It is the silent discomfort you feel when you stand beside someone who once brought you peace, but now only brings you tension. The mind can ignore it, but the body always knows. You begin to feel drained in their presence, unsure why their words sting, even when they smile. The truth is often quiet, not loud. And when someone close to you secretly harbors resentment, jealousy, or hidden dislike, it will not always show in argument. It will show in subtle energy, in choices, in how they celebrate you or how they don't. This is not a message to create suspicion. It is a message to bring awareness. Because sometimes the greatest act of self-respect is not confronting others, but listening to what your inner stillness has already noticed. Let us explore the signs that someone close to you may secretly hate you. When someone close to you secretly harbors resentment or hidden dislike, it often doesn't reveal itself through shouting or confrontation. It emerges in the quiet spaces, in the subtle way their words land in your chest. One of the clearest signs is when their compliments begin to feel like they carry hidden blades. You hear them praising you, yet something feels off. The smile doesn't reach their eyes. The tone is slightly cold. The praise, instead of lifting your spirit, leaves a residue of doubt. They may say you look good today, but then follow it with a comparison to a time when you looked better. Or they may tell you that you did a good job while pointing out that someone else did it faster or more efficiently. It is not what they are saying on the surface, it is what their energy is revealing underneath. Their words do not nourish, they quietly erode. Over time, this type of disguised communication begins to reshape your own self-perception. You find yourself second-guessing your accomplishments, replaying their comments in your head, wondering whether you are truly worthy or just being tolerated. This erosion of confidence doesn't happen suddenly. It happens like drops of water carving into stone, not with intensity, but with persistence. The danger is that most people do not recognize this for what it is. Because on the outside, these compliments appear supportive. The words seem kind. They congratulate you. They attend your victories. They speak in polite tones. But energy is more honest than language. Your body feels the dissonance even when your mind is confused. And if you ignore that feeling, you begin to internalize the quiet hostility hidden behind their compliments. Sometimes the praise is laced with humor, with sarcasm. They'll say something that could be a joke, but it feels sharp. Like saying, "Wow, you're finally on time for once," or "Look who decided to succeed today." These jokes may make others laugh, but you feel the sting. The intention is not to celebrate you, it is to remind you of your flaws, to make sure you never feel fully at ease in your own growth. This is how people maintain control, by pretending to uplift you while ensuring that you remain below them emotionally. They want to be seen as the supportive one, the one who is always there for you, but they do not want to see you rise above them, because your light reminds them of their own shadows. In these interactions, attention must be paid to the subtle shifts. When you speak of something you're proud of, observe their reaction. Do they lean in with genuine interest, or do they quickly change the topic? Do they ask thoughtful questions, or do they offer backhanded compliments? When you experience success, do they amplify it, or do they downplay it by bringing up their own achievements or struggles? These moments reveal what words cannot. The person who truly celebrates you does not feel diminished by your joy. The person who secretly resents you sees your joy as competition, and where there is competition, there is no space for unconditional support. This kind of energy is difficult to confront, especially when it comes from someone close. A friend, a sibling, a partner, because you want to believe in their kindness. You want to trust their intentions. But kindness without clarity becomes a trap. It teaches you to accept crumbs because they come with a smile. It convinces you to stay silent, to keep the peace, even while your self-worth is slowly unraveling. The challenge is not just in recognizing these subtle attacks. It is in believing yourself enough to step away from them, even when the world may not see the problem. When someone treats you in a way that makes you feel small, uneasy, or unsure, but does so with polite words and socially acceptable behavior, others may praise them. They may be seen as kind, generous, well-meaning. But you are the one living inside the experience, and that experience is what holds the truth. This dynamic also affects your own inner dialogue. The more you are exposed to disguised criticism, the more you begin to doubt your instincts. You may start to silence your voice in other spaces, not just around this person. You start seeking validation more often. You fear speaking of your successes, not wanting to trigger discomfort, and in doing so, you betray your own growth. This is why awareness is not just a tool, it is protection. The awareness to feel the difference between real support and masked resentment. The awareness to see the contrast between uplifting words and passive control. The awareness to listen to what your body feels when your mind is trying to make sense of confusion. The person who compliments you with quiet resentment may not be consciously aware of their feelings. Often, their behavior stems from their own insecurity, their own inner wounds. But understanding that is not a reason to tolerate it. Compassion does not mean self-abandonment. It is possible to recognize someone's struggle while also recognizing that it is not your responsibility to absorb the consequences. You are not here to manage someone else's envy. You are not here to shrink to make others feel secure. You are here to honor your path. And that means trusting yourself enough to see when the words no longer match the energy, and to step back from what harms, even if it hides behind politeness. When someone close to you secretly hates you, their true feelings are not always shown in moments of conflict, but in moments of your vulnerability. One of the clearest signs is how they react when life humbles you. When everything is going well, they may be distant, uninterested, or only half engaged. But when you experience setbacks, when you are broken, confused, or hurting, their energy becomes strangely brighter. They suddenly become more present, but not in a way that heals. It is a type of presence that feels like watching rather than comforting. They seem more alert, more engaged, but the support they offer lacks empathy. Their concern doesn't bring peace. Instead, it brings a feeling of being observed, like your pain is something they are studying or quietly enjoying. This hidden satisfaction in your failure is a reflection of their inner imbalance, because instead of genuinely sharing your burdens, they are using your hardship as a way to validate their own superiority. They may say the right things, but their tone betrays them. You can hear the judgment hidden beneath the sympathy. When you fall, they remind you of the decisions you could have made better. When you're in pain, they speak in a way that highlights your helplessness rather than your resilience. And when you express hope, they dismiss it with cynicism. These are not the signs of someone who wants to see you rise again. They are the quiet actions of someone who finds peace in your struggle, because it confirms their own hidden resentment. When you win, they feel like they are losing. When you lose, they feel balanced again. And so, they gravitate toward your brokenness, not out of love, but because it is the only time they feel in control. There is a discomfort that arises when your victories are met with silence. You achieve something significant and they respond with lukewarm enthusiasm. The celebration is minimal, the conversation quickly shifts away from your success, and you are left wondering if you are allowed to feel joy. But the moment you stumble, their attention sharpens. They act overly interested. They begin to ask questions, not to understand, but to dissect. This shift is not just emotional, it is energetic. In their presence, your achievements feel small, but your failures feel magnified. And slowly, your sense of self begins to erode under the weight of their quiet disdain. It is important to recognize that this behavior is not always malicious in the traditional sense. Sometimes the person doesn't even realize they are doing it. Their satisfaction in your pain comes from unresolved feelings of inadequacy, jealousy, or inner competition. Your pain makes them feel equal. Your failures give them a temporary sense of relief. And so instead of encouraging you to stand back up, they keep you in the story of your fall. They remind you of the mistake. They speak about your past more than your potential. They look at you with sympathy, but never with belief. Because belief would require them to accept that you might rise again. And that is the part they are not ready to face. This subtle dynamic is dangerous because it hides behind the mask of concern. They may offer help, but that help comes with emotional strings. They want to be seen as the one who saved you, not the one who believed in you. Their help keeps you dependent, keeps you small, keeps you indebted, and over time you may begin to mistake this dynamic for love. But real love empowers you to rise. Real love believes in your healing more than your wound. It doesn't need you to be broken in order to feel useful. It finds joy in your wholeness. When you are around someone who secretly resents you, your pain becomes their comfort zone. They are more available when you are struggling because it gives them a sense of importance. But when you are shining, their availability fades. You may even feel like you need to downplay your happiness just to maintain the relationship. That is when you know the connection is no longer safe. Because no one who loves you will require your suffering to stay close. The energy of someone who secretly hates you will always betray them. It will show up in their timing, in their enthusiasm, in the way they show up only when you're at your lowest. True support is balanced. It is there in both pain and joy. It does not need you to be small in order to feel big. Understanding this dynamic requires deep self-awareness. You must observe not just what people say, but when they choose to speak. Watch who leans in when you're down and who disappears when you are rising. Pay attention to how you feel after spending time with them. Do you feel lighter, more hopeful, or do you feel drained and unsure of yourself? Your body always knows. Your intuition will whisper what the mind tries to deny. And that whisper is the signal. When someone is more comfortable with your suffering than with your joy, they are not your ally. They are a reflection of the parts of you that still question your own worth. And the moment you stop participating in that dynamic, you begin to reclaim your truth, not by confronting them, but by choosing to rise regardless of who claps. A person who secretly harbors negative feelings toward you will rarely attack you openly. Instead, one of the most telling signs is how they subtly exclude you or withhold support when you need it most. This behavior does not manifest through open rejection or direct confrontation, but rather through consistent, quiet omission. You notice that you are not invited to key moments. When opportunities are shared, your name is left out. When gatherings are planned, you are informed last or not at all. In moments of personal need, whether emotional, professional, or spiritual, your calls for support are met with silence or delay. This kind of exclusion is not about forgetfulness. It is a pattern that arises from emotional distance, from hidden resentment, or from the quiet satisfaction they find in keeping you on the margins. Their absence during your difficult moments is their way of saying they are not invested in your journey, that your growth or healing does not concern them. This lack of presence is a mirror of their internal emotional disconnection. When someone cares for you deeply, their presence is not conditional. It is not reserved only for moments that are convenient for them. They show up even when it is difficult, even when there is nothing in it for them. But someone who secretly dislikes you does not make that effort. They observe from a distance, often pretending to care, but never truly offering the type of presence that brings real comfort. It is not just that they are physically absent. It is that even when they are around, you feel alone. Their responses to your problems are surface level. When you are hurting, they offer cliché advice. When you are confused, they remain quiet. When you finally open up, they change the subject or dismiss it as temporary. Their lack of emotional depth is not accidental. It is a deliberate choice to withhold intimacy from a connection they no longer value. Their support is transactional, and because they are driven by ego rather than heart, they give only when they believe it will benefit them in some way. If your success could bring them validation, they might cheer for you in public, but if your struggle makes them feel superior or justified, they will let you face it alone. And what makes this behavior more harmful is its quietness. There is no fight, no argument, no clear betrayal, just silence, just the absence of empathy. This absence creates confusion because it doesn't match the outward identity they project. They still smile, they still make small talk, but underneath there is a growing emptiness. It's in the way they don't follow up. It's in the way they never ask how you're truly doing. It's in the way they never celebrate you with full sincerity. You begin to feel this difference in energy. You start to sense that the relationship no longer nourishes you. You begin to withhold parts of yourself. You stop sharing your dreams, your struggles, your fears, not because they told you to stop, but because deep down you know it's not safe. The space that once felt open now feels fragile. You are always walking carefully, measuring your words, checking your tone. This constant self-monitoring is a reaction to their silent judgment. And while it may feel subtle, it slowly transforms your sense of safety and trust in that relationship. You find yourself pretending to be okay. You keep your real feelings hidden, not wanting to expose your vulnerability to someone who no longer protects it. One of the deepest wounds caused by this kind of secret resentment is the erosion of emotional safety. When someone close to you withholds their support in your low moments, you begin to internalize the belief that your struggles are not worthy of compassion. And this belief doesn't stay confined to that one relationship. It begins to shape your identity. You start to believe that you must face everything alone. You stop expecting people to care. You carry your burdens in silence, not out of strength, but out of learned isolation. And even when new people come into your life, people who might genuinely care, you hesitate. Because the pain from that one relationship taught you that asking for help is risky, that showing weakness will only lead to more distance. This kind of emotional neglect is a slow form of betrayal. It's not loud enough to confront, but deep enough to leave a mark. And recognizing it requires a clear heart and a steady mind. You have to stop looking at what they say and start observing what they consistently do. You have to step back and ask yourself, when I needed support, were they really there? Not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, and energetically. Did their presence bring comfort, or did it make me feel more alone? Did I feel lifted by their energy, or did I have to shrink to receive their attention? Relationships are not defined by the good times. They are defined by what happens when things fall apart. Anyone can be present when life is beautiful, but only those with genuine love and loyalty remain when things are uncertain, uncomfortable, or dark. The one who quietly pulls away when you are struggling is not someone who is confused or busy. They are someone who has already made a silent choice to not stand by your side. And the moment you realize this, you stop chasing their presence. You stop begging for connection. You begin to build your strength not on who stayed, but on your own decision to rise. Alone if necessary, but never again in the shadow of someone who takes pleasure in your absence. When someone close to you secretly harbors resentment or hate, one of the most telling behaviors is the way they compete with you. Not openly, but quietly and persistently. This competition is rarely acknowledged out loud. It often hides behind friendly gestures, disguised encouragement, or backhanded compliments. On the surface, it may seem like they support you, but when you look more deeply, you begin to notice a pattern. Every time you share an idea, they try to one-up it. Every time you celebrate a small victory, they respond by talking about their own. The conversation is always redirected, and slowly you begin to feel like your achievements are not being received with joy, but with discomfort. This subtle form of competition reveals that they are not at peace with your growth. Your progress becomes a mirror to their own stagnation, and instead of using your success as inspiration, they use it as a threat. This silent rivalry often shows up in how they talk about you to others. They may downplay your strengths or emphasize your past mistakes. They might use humor to mask criticism, making jokes at your expense in front of others. On the surface it seems light-hearted, but beneath it is a deliberate attempt to position themselves above you. This is not a battle of ego that happens in one moment. It's a long-term erosion of equality in the relationship. They begin to keep score, even if you don't. You are not trying to compete, but they are always comparing. They measure your successes not by how far you've come, but by how close you are to surpassing them. And when you get too close to rising higher, they pull back. They become distant, colder, less available. It is as if your evolution has created a divide between you, a divide they don't want to close. The most confusing part of this dynamic is that it doesn't always feel aggressive. Because the competition is hidden under friendly interaction, it's hard to name it. You may even feel guilty for noticing it. You might tell yourself you're being too sensitive or imagining things. But this doubt is part of the dynamic. When someone close to you secretly competes with you, they don't want you to see it clearly. They want you to stay unaware, because the moment you become aware, the dynamic loses its power. So they keep their rivalry quiet. They mask it with smiles. They support you when it's safe for them. But when you start stepping into your full potential, they withdraw their energy, not because you have changed, but because your light is now brighter than the image they've constructed for themselves. There is a tension in this type of relationship that never truly relaxes. You might notice it when you're about to share good news. There's a hesitation, a pause, because something inside you already knows how it will be received. Not with celebration, but with comparison. Not with joy, but with quiet discomfort. Over time, this changes how you show up. You begin to share less. You shrink your success so it doesn't trigger their insecurity. You water down your wins, not because you're humble, but because you don't want to lose the connection. And that is where the danger lies. You begin adjusting yourself to keep the peace with someone who is not at peace with your growth. You start hiding the very parts of you that are meant to shine. This hidden competition creates a barrier between two people who may have once been close. It disrupts the flow of trust and openness. You can't be fully yourself when you are worried that your success will create discomfort. And you can't grow freely when the people around you are quietly measuring your progress against theirs. Healthy relationships are built on mutual respect and shared growth. When one person thrives, both should feel lifted. But when someone secretly resents your progress, their support becomes conditional. It only exists as long as you don't surpass them. And that is not support. It's a performance. To recognize this hidden rivalry, you must pay attention to your energy. Notice how you feel after spending time with them. Do you feel expanded or diminished, uplifted or quietly judged? Does your inner fire grow stronger, or do you find yourself questioning your path? Your body and intuition will always reveal the truth. The way someone makes you feel, consistently, over time, is the clearest signal of their real intention. If being around them causes you to dim your light, it's not your light that is too bright. It's their shadow that refuses to face the truth. This silent competition is not about you, it's about their own unmet potential. Your growth reminds them of the work they haven't done. Your courage reveals their fear. Your commitment exposes their complacency, and instead of using that reflection to evolve, they use it to create distance. But your role is not to shrink for the comfort of others. Your role is to stay aligned with your purpose, even if it makes others uncomfortable. You are not responsible for their reactions. You are responsible for your truth. And when you choose to keep rising with clarity, with kindness, and with integrity, the right people will celebrate with you. When someone secretly harbors negative feelings toward you, their true emotions will often surface not in how they act when you're present, but in how they behave when you're not around. One of the clearest signs of hidden resentment is how they speak about you in your absence. People who genuinely care about you guard your name as they would guard your heart. They protect your dignity and character, even when you are not there to witness it. But when someone holds bitterness inside, they may present themselves as friendly to your face, yet subtly or overtly undermine you behind your back. They may speak words that question your intentions, exaggerate your flaws, or even plant seeds of doubt in others. Their tone may appear harmless, but the intent behind their words reveals a different story. Whether they gossip, mock, or cast your actions in a suspicious light, the goal is often the same: to weaken your image while maintaining a position of control or superiority over you in the minds of others. This type of hidden behavior is particularly dangerous because it's often invisible to you until the consequences begin to surface. You might notice that certain people start treating you differently without explanation. Opportunities that once came easily are suddenly blocked. Trust begins to erode in your relationships or work environments. And while it may not be obvious at first, eventually you begin to trace it back to someone you trust. You discover that someone who claimed to support you has in fact become the quiet architect of your doubt in the eyes of others. The betrayal is not in a loud accusation, but in the slow erosion of your reputation. A process that is far more difficult to confront because it lacks clear evidence or a single moment of rupture. Those who secretly dislike you may also disguise their judgment in the form of concern. They might say things like, "I'm worried about them," or "I hope they know what they're doing," while implying incompetence or recklessness. They may share half-truths, conveniently leaving out the parts of your story that show your growth, your resilience, or your intentions. They become storytellers, spinning narratives that preserve their ego while minimizing your light. And the more confident or successful you become, the more persistent their narrative becomes. Because your growth challenges the identity they have built around being above or beyond you. They can no longer control your path, so instead, they attempt to control how others perceive it. There's another layer to this behavior that makes it even more complex. These individuals may not even be fully aware of the harm they are causing. The human ego has many ways of protecting itself. It justifies, rationalizes, and explains away insecurity. Someone who secretly hates you may convince themselves that they are simply being honest or looking out for others. They may not identify their actions as betrayal because they believe their perspective is true, but whether conscious or unconscious, their behavior has consequences. It poisons the energy that surrounds you. It creates division. It robs you of the safety and stability that relationships are meant to provide. And over time, it isolates you, not because you are flawed, but because someone else has decided that your light is too difficult for them to hold. What's important to understand is that how someone speaks of you when you're not present is a reflection of their character, not yours. People of integrity speak truth without cruelty. They hold space for others to evolve. They may acknowledge your mistakes, but they also honor your effort. They don't weaponize your imperfections. They don't seek to harm your connections in order to elevate their own. And when they hear gossip, they stop it. They protect your absence the way they would hope others protect theirs. That is what it means to walk with honor. The more conscious you become, the more sensitive you will be to the energy people carry, even when they say nothing. You will notice the slight shift in tone when your name is mentioned. You will observe the quick change of subject when someone realizes they've said too much. You will feel the subtle tension in the air when your presence is discussed by those who secretly resent you. And though these signs may be quiet, they are not insignificant. They are the soul's way of guiding you toward truth. You begin to realize that not every smile is sincere. Not every friend is a safe place, and not every connection deserves your vulnerability. In these moments of clarity, it is not anger that is needed, but wisdom. You don't need to confront or expose. You don't need to match their energy. You simply need to decide, who do you allow into the sacred space of your trust? Who deserves to walk beside you on the path of growth? Who holds your name with care, even when you're not around to hear it? The answers to these questions shape not just your relationships, but your entire journey. Because when you are surrounded by those who love openly and stand for you even in silence, your spirit grows freely without fear of unseen judgment or betrayal. When you begin to walk the path of awareness, you realize that not everyone who stands beside you truly stands with you. The eyes may smile, the lips may speak kind words, but the heart carries its own truth. And the energy of that truth will always reveal itself in time. To protect your peace, you must be willing to listen, not just to what is said, but to what is shown through silence, absence, avoidance, and contradiction. When someone secretly resents your light, your progress, or your presence, they will not always confront you directly. They will chip away in shadows, not to your face, but behind your back. The lesson is not to fight or to beg for acceptance. The lesson is to become still enough, strong enough, and clear enough to recognize the hidden energy and walk away without anger. Because in this life, your spirit must not beg to be respected, and your name must not rest in the mouths of those who do not honor it. Choose truth over illusion, and your path will always remain clean.